last section for Of Woman in Salt. Yes. What did we think?
Depressing.
When when they said when Anna went looking for Jeanette,
Mhm.
and then the mom answers and she's like, "Oh, she," and I was like, "No, don't say it." It's like she died. And I was like, oh, wow. But I mean, I feel like we saw it coming.
Yeah, for the amount of time she went to rehab. Um, and her not letting go of Mario, really.
Yeah. And then so Mario kept saying he worked at a clinic or he kept going to a clinic. I was a bit
Mm.
confused with that.
I think he was working there, and it sounds like they were like dispensing like the Norcos and the
To him,
Percocet,
right?
the Oxy. So he would like slip on in his sock, and then he would sell those and get like other drugs. And then he got caught, so he got like fired. So then she was saying he's gonna have to like become the patient now, and so that he can still get the drugs and still sell them, but the profit will be less.
Yeah, that I don't know if you guys watched it's a movie called Pain Hustlers that
Oh, is it good? It's on my to
it, it's on
watch
Netflix,
list.
yeah. So I watched it with my sister and her fiance. We were like, what movie should we watch? And it's just interesting how stuff happens just randomly and then it fits into the book we're reading. Like this one, they were talking about Florida and all that stuff, and the Pain Hustlers was in Florida, and like one of the doctors was pretty much prescribing these like medications on the side, these opioids to this one specific guy. And right when Mario was talking about that, like, oh, now I have to go and act like I have this, and now you have to be the patient. I was like, wow, that's just like the movie. Like you're going in for something like that's not even for like you're getting medications that are not even for what you're saying they are. Because that's what happened in the movie, which I think it's pretty good. It has Chris Evans and Emily Blunt.
Mm. What's the name of it?
Pain Hustlers.
Pain Hustler.
So it's like it's they're trying to sell uh fentanyl under a different name
Mhm.
for the main thing was that it helped with cancer pain. And they're like, oh no, it's not addictive. But then later on they say like, oh, the study was obviously incorrect because they didn't pay attention to like the actual study said it's not addictive to people who were at stage 4 cancer and not just like any cancer. So
Mhm.
they ended up getting a lot of money because their reps trying to obviously have doctors um prescribe this drug, and they're like, oh no, it's better, blah blah blah, this and that. So you see the stages of like no doctor's doing it, no doctor, and then everyone is, and then becoming millionaires, billionaires, and then people start dying because they're addicted, and yeah, it's pretty wild.
It also kind of a little bit reminds me during Halloween, the same people who made Bly Manor and Haunting on Hill House did the house Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh,
And it's pretty interesting. It's kind of, and it's a little spooky, but it's about this family that's made billions of dollars off of a drug that's supposed to be like aspirin, but it's like as addictive as heroin.
yeah, wow, I'll put that one on my list. Interesting.
If you like those shows,
Yeah, well, see, this
maybe.
thing, my sister's fiance was the one who was like, oh, let's watch, like he picked one movie, then I picked another, and then we all kind of just decided, we're like, wait, Chris Evans is in there, oh, Captain America, let's watch him. And
Mhm.
then we just started because I don't really gravitate towards it. Felt like a documentary kind of thing, but it was pretty good, and it related to the book, so then I was like, ooh, that was perfect.
It did make me think about how difficult it is to have a relative, especially if it's your child, have addiction.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do you support them? And like what, and I think while Carmen maybe wasn't the best mom at some times, she did pay for her rehab. Um, although I do think Jeanette had some unresolved issues with her mom. Like she always thought maybe her mom didn't think she was good enough because her
Mhm.
mom was so perfect, like the way she dressed and like being the perfect hostess and all that stuff. So I thought about how, because I've had family members with addiction problems, but never like immediate family members. So I've never had to like deal with um the issues that come with it directly.
Yeah.
Like how do you support them in the best way without enabling or without completely shutting them out?
Mhm.
It's just crazy, like these modern day like struggles and issues versus like was it the Dolores chapter, like so many similarities, like they all kind of had the abusive men in their lives. But like, Dolores just like scraping pennies and like out there machete, like I don't know. That's just crazy versus like Jeanette, very privileged life, but also has her issues. And then like Anna, who kind of still going through this immigration, probably much like how Dolores had to bring her kids over, like wading through the waters and stuff. Just thinking about like all the issues, like present day, we have so much different issues than back then, but then so many similarities too.
Mm-hmm.
Like these kids, it's like these immigrant parents, like at the clinic, they like work so hard. They're working like manual labor jobs, And these kids, like they just play their Nintendo, and you're like, do you walk? Do you exercise? Like, no, just in PE.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my god, these generations are just so different. It's so
Mhm.
crazy.
That's interesting you say that because there was one time I was working with a peds doctor, and there was a mom who, like, I mean, I didn't really know them, but the doctor was telling me, she's like, oh yeah, the mom works so hard to like give these children like iPads and like cell phones at such a young age. And the relationship like that the kids had with the mom, like you'd expect them to be super grateful and super nice to her, and they were really rude. And I'm like, that's interesting how they're working their ass off and you're just here, getting the reward, but you're being an a-hole. Like I'm sure there's other stuff that may have contributed to the kids feeling that way. Which I feel like goes with Jeanette and her mom, how they didn't really understand each other, and you're just like, why are you being like this to me? Or like, um, but it's so sad where I feel like if people would have just communicated, if the mom hadn't held off so much, or like even if Jeanette, like, I don't know. I mean, they both needed therapy, right? But I just feel like communication is key, and it's not easy, but it could have helped out a lot in the situation here. And like the mom in the clinic that I've seen, I'm just like, I feel so sad because they're doing their best, but the kids are just not thankful.
Mhm. I do think Jeanette, and it could be hard to communicate, but if she maybe told her mom what she needed, and we all want our parents just to like assume that they know what they need to do to help us.
Mhm.
But it's also their first time going through life. They don't know everything. And it's not always fair to just expect so much if you're not communicating.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are communicating and you're trying to talk, that's one thing. But if she doesn't always say what she needs,
Mhm.
her mom might not know how to help her.
There's some discussion questions. I don't know if your guys' books or did you both listen to it?
I listened to it, but I can see if it's on there.
Yeah, I listened to there weren't discussion questions, but they had a little interview with the author.
Yeah. Listen to the interview.
That was cool.
There were some discussion ones in the Kindle, and some of them are like, which chapter surprised you the most and why? Compare and contrast the mother-daughter relationship in this novel. What are some of the differences and similarities?
The chapter that shocked me the most, I guess, was Dolores's background with her husband
Mm.
and the machete. I just didn't think that's what happened when we were first reading about the tension between Carmen and Dolores.
Mhm. Hmm. Which one surprised me?
Because it like when they were having the Thanksgiving, was
Mhm.
Dolores already dead?
I think that was
I think
before.
she was alive. Because didn't they have like uncles, Jeanette's uncles, or some like extended family saying like, "Oh, you should go talk to her," or like, "Why aren't you talking to her?"
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay. So she's still alive.
Because there was a line in that chapter where I think she was saying um something about like when you die, like your whole world flashes before your eyes or whatever. Like she was saying that, and then she was saying like, but that didn't happen to me. So I thought she was dead or like that she gets killed, but then you go back to the Thanksgiving like conversation, and they're like, oh, you should talk to your mom, kind of thing. And I'm like, so maybe she is alive. Or was alive in the present.
I like the way it's these different characters and it leaves a lot, for us to imagine or like guess, but I also feel like each character could have their own book and
Yeah.
I'd be like super interested in Carmen's whole story and Dolores' whole story and Jeanette's whole story. You should totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the author did say that initially she started with short stories and then just like combined it, which I agree that she can totally do one character like a book about, and then it becomes a series because I think there's enough information for that. And at first I didn't really like that we were getting a lot of characters. And it was a bit confusing, kind of being like, what year are we at? And, who's talking in listening to it. Um, but reading it, I think, was a little easier to identify. And in the end, I did like it. I feel like the mom was in the beginning, right? The main, what was her name? Maria. Maria.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
one thing I did
Maria.
not like was that they mentioned her a little bit. They mentioned Cecilia a little bit, and then they just disappeared. It's like,
Mhm.
Wait, which one did Jeanette visit in Cuba? Was that Dolores?
I think it was her cousin. Elena? No, her
'Cause
cousin.
wasn't it her grandma?
My dailies. That's Dolores. Jeanette. Yeah, just in my grandmother. That would be Dolores?
Mhm.
Dolores.
Yeah, I think it was Dolores then. I can't remember the name, but
Yeah, it's
that's the
Dolores.
grandma. So
Yeah.
like we never got like anything about Cecilia really.
Mm.
Because that was a lady.
Besides, like, I think she was one of the ones working making the cigars. Right?
Because Maria.
And then Maria Isabel was the first one we met, where she was um learning how to read and ended up dating or marrying that guy.
Yeah. And then she was the cigar maker.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So like there was a little bit, but it's like they gave us the name, and not to say that it wasn't important, because I feel like it was an important part of the history. I just feel like they could have said my great great grandma. Like if you put a name to it, and obviously you want to honor their names and stuff, but at the same time, like, give me more.
Mhm.
To be like, why are you giving me these names? Besides just like, oh, it's the history or like the family tree. Because then I get confused. I'm like, why was it important?
Yeah, some of those, I think it was hard for me to visualize
Yeah.
the characters. She had like some descriptive, but I think because so many of the characters, which I like, were female, it was hard
Mhm.
for me to keep track of them all.
Yeah. And then I think most of them at some point, I think we get the story of like the same age.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't just like, oh, I was a little kid. It was like we were getting more of the story when they were adults. So then with like their significant others, when they weren't being treated right, it's like you can't be like, oh, it's the one with the abusive husband, or like the one that, like, because they all kind of had a similar partner.
Mhm.
Just kind of shows like the trauma, like
Mhm.
they're exposed to that and it's like that's what they know. So
Mhm.
I guess it just keep carrying on the trauma. I thought it was interesting that Carmen like bought Jeanette's house and then Anna came and she like let her live there, but then wasn't really like clinging to her,
Hmm.
just kind of checking in on her. But 'cause at first I thought, oh, maybe she wants her to be like her replacement daughter. But that was not the case.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I don't know if I would buy like my dead daughter's home. I feel like I would need to move on, but I wonder what the symbolism was there.
Hmm. It's interesting because it's like I'm looking at the last line where she's like, she rented this house because she couldn't live with me anymore. Like that was like her little escape. Like I'm done with you, mom. And
Mhm.
now the mom is there,
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, not all the issues in her other home are left there. Like if she's also running away from those issues and kind of like, let me be in this one rented home where it was my daughter's escape and now it's my escape, but yet it reminds her of her. So that's kind of like, why are you staying in the pain? You know?
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I didn't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, I'm like, what is she escaping from? Like her
Hmm.
husband that was abusive, he passed away, daughter passed away. So
Hmm.
it's like she just wants to wallow in it almost, like
Yeah.
not move on.
Yeah, I've heard that there's also people that just like to feel pain. And
Hmm.
not to say that this is it Carmen? Yeah, I think it's Carmen. Carmen, but it's like maybe she just doesn't want to feel better because then maybe it's like she's forgetting her daughter, or maybe she feels bad that her daughter has always been through this pain and this is like not even, how do I say it? Like her daughter went through so much, at least this is the pain that she's gonna go through
Hmm.
as a way not even to feel better that her daughter went through the pain or a punishment either, but like it seems like a punishment to
Or just
herself, you
feel
know?
something.
Yeah. They also mentioned a lot, and one of the discussions was the book Les Miserables,
Hmm.
and they're like, did it say? The first edition, the first time we see it is in Cuba in 1866, and the last time we see it is in present day Miami. What do you think the daughter? What do you think the author is trying to say about the way stories transcend generations?
Hmm.
One, I haven't actually read this book, or I know it's a play too, right? Or a musical.
Mhm.
I haven't seen it either.
I've seen the movie, but it's a musical, so it's hard for me to totally understand what's going on.
Mhm.
Um,
I know it's sad, right?
yeah,
Like
it's
that.
sad. I can't think of it's just a whole bunch of people like um it's a poor mother. I remember that, and then her child kind of turns out a little more affluent than she is, but he still has issues. Like whatever they're seeking, um, it's not always like promised, no matter how well you're off with money or
Mm.
success. There's still gonna be issues. Even
Oh,
with Carmen, she thought she had like a perfect husband, and then she found out he molested their daughter,
mhm.
and she was very concerned on how she appeared to others more than maybe who she truly was as a person, and expressing that part of her. Or even no matter how much freedom you have, there's still going to be obstacles that you're going to have to work through.
So it's like it kind of goes with whatever they were going through. I mean, I don't think they necessarily like got out of poverty. I mean, maybe compared to the beginning, they were doing better.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess I can see why they would mention that book, where they're very similar, and I guess maybe their trauma kind of connected them, even though maybe it's not the same exact trauma, but like the pain or like the all the issues they were going through were easier for them to relate to. At least Janet and who else had it? Was it Maria Isabel, the great grandma?
Great, great,
I think one of
great.
those. Yeah. I feel like it could also go with the um it's like generational trauma. Even though a book isn't really trauma, but I feel like part of that could kind of go through generations.
Mm-hmm. According to Google or SparkNotes,
Hmm.
the theme of Les Mis is that love and compassion are the most important gifts one person can give another.
Mm.
Displaying these qualities is crucial. So, like with Maria Isabella, um, Anthony was his name, and
I think it was. I want to say it was Antonio.
Antonio
Mhm.
being very compassionate towards her, I think helped her realize how strong she was, and maybe if Carmen had been a little bit more or shown her love and compassion for her daughter would have felt more accepted. If the government felt more compassion for immigrant families, um, and then also the other men, like Dolores's husband, Carmen's husband, not showing much love or compassion.
Yeah.
And it's also the social issues, because it's about the French Revolution and then Cuba having their political strifes.
Yeah, I like that they mentioned a little bit of the politics in there. I feel like I was expecting a bit more. Um, just because I feel like anything with Cuba, they'll just they'll provide it more, but they didn't. I was kind of surprised with that. 'Cause I think it was just in Dolores' section where the I think the her husband was like, "Oh, we won" or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at first I was like, what are they talking about? And I was like, oh, cool. It's that.
But I thought it was a good book. It kept me entertained. It did lose me at some points with the timelines. I think maybe if I read it, it would have helped with that. But I did like the narrator's um reading in the audiobook.
Yeah, one of the questions was, how did you feel about jumping through time and place in this novel, and discuss the importance of narratives that defy chronological and sequential order? Um, and I did not like the jumping into time, just because I was listening to it, and I'm sure the narrator mentioned the year in the beginning, but it's hard to picture where you're at.
Mhm.
I think it's better visual, and you're like, okay, we're in this year, and at least you can like write it down. I mean, I wasn't taking notes or anything, and if I did pause it or if I was doing something else and then I came back to it, I forget that I'm not in the present, that I'm in like someone else's story, and with the whole different characters, it also made it difficult, and I was confused too.
I wonder if the author did that to see what judgments we would make about characters before we knew the whole story. But it just kind of confused me more than made me reflect. I don't know.
Yeah, because I can see that, but I feel like it also seems confusing because she initially wanted this to be short stories. So
Mhm.
I can see her just being like, I'll put this one here and this one here, and like just putting them together, be like, it works. I don't think, or maybe she did put work into trying to mesh them um neatly into each other, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like short stories separate. It's like watching a series, and it's like it's all the same setting, same characters, but a different episode each day, but not
I do
chronological
think it would be a good
series.
show.
Yeah,
Series.
I think I would watch it.
All I know is that thing Darlene sent us like saved me. The family tree, and
Yeah.
I just like, I don't know, like that one audiobook, Daisy Jones and the Six, like they had an attached like a PDF attachment of the song lyrics. So I'm like, why can't other books attach stuff like that, you know?
True. And see, the thing about that is Daisy Jones had multiple characters, and I don't think it was confusing. Like the only confusing part was like maybe the characters that didn't say much, or like they were like barely introduced. But I feel like,
I think that there wasn't a lot of dialogue
yeah,
between the characters.
that's what I was thinking too. Like there was not enough, yeah, dialogue, but also like description of each, besides like they're all in the same family, they're married to this one guy, or they're not being treated well by like Mario and all that stuff, like their significant other. Um, but we're all just getting females. So it is harder to be like, okay, even though they're in the same family, obviously we can't see the similarities, but at the same time, it felt like that. Like, who am I talking to? Like, they were all not necessarily twins, like the grandma, and like everyone looked the same. So I couldn't tell
Yeah.
who was what.
It was who?
Yeah.
Like Carmen and Jeanette. I got those two. But the others, and I still don't understand the story with the panther.
Yeah.
Or why. I do think it was like a symbolism for,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something, but I'm not sure what.
That's true. I feel like they focus too much on that for what?
Yeah.
And maybe it could be that the author wanted to include more of like, I think most books that are like in Mexico or South America or any Latin America, I feel like they always include animals to symbolize something. And maybe
Mhm.
she was just trying to include it to be like, okay, this is not necessarily a tradition, but it's like this is what all the other books do. Let me try and do that too.
Mhm.
With
Maybe it's supposed to symbolize a warning to Carmen,
yeah,
or I think I tried to look it up, but panthers, I couldn't find like a definitive symbol or thing that they represented it in Latin American culture or literature.
mhm. I'm still amazed that for Gloria and Anna, even though they were Mexican, they just dumped them in Mexico.
Yeah.
That was new like information to me. I mean, obviously I haven't fact checked it, but I'm sure they do that where they're like, meh, you're from Mexico. It's sad.
It's one thing to like even take them away from the home that they had in America, the
Hmm.
United States, and then to just, oh yeah, well, you can't be here, so we're gonna force you out, but you don't even bring them back to their home country.
Yeah.
But I would give it, because it was so different,
Hmm.
I gave it a 4. And I did think it was very realistic. And even though it was depressing, um, apparently a panther is a symbol of subconscious urges and abilities.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I thought like it symbolized the drug addictions.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna
Like,
say. Jeanette's urge, or maybe Mario's urge to do the drugs. And then
Black Panthers in African literature represent courage, strength, and personal leadership.
hmm, Black Panther. Hmm. I think I give it. It was good. There was one chapter where I think I was falling asleep and I couldn't get through. So
Mhm.
like maybe a 3.75. Between I want to give it a 4, between a 3.5 and a 4. 3.5 because I fell asleep in that one chapter and I just couldn't get through it. I can't remember which one it was. And then a 4 because it was different. I was a bit confused, but it was still pretty good stories. And there's moments where I just wanted to tell my sister, I'm like, can you believe this happened? You know? And like when books do that, I feel like they deserve a 4. So I'll
Mhm.
be a 3.75. 3.8.
Funny.
I'd give it like I think 4.25 because I really liked it, even though it was confusing. It kind of like worked, you know.
Yeah.
It makes me want to read it again to like, yeah, now that we know the characters better, to like get all those little nuances, like where they're referencing each other. and I think it's definitely one I would like recommend to others.
Mhm.
I don't know. I didn't find it, although it had a lot of depressing themes, I didn't find it overly depressing.
Yeah, I
It
feel
was
like
just so, I don't know.
it is
It was
sad.
just so real and so like historical. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it is real, where obviously not everyone's going to be talking about these issues or like with immigration and the drugs and all that stuff. Um, so I think it's nice to read and then have like get a different perspective of that. I guess I would recommend it to people.
I think it fit our theme really nicely too. Like it was nice, like historical elements, but
Mhm.
like a good story, strong women.
It is also interesting to see the different generations and how, and it makes me like not compare, but think about like my mom, my grandma, my great grandma, so and so, and how different their lives are to mine and the issues that are either generational or not. And like I think my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and when I turned like 3, my grandma was a stay-at-home mom, but she was a secretary before, but she had not gone to a university, but my mom had. And then my great great grandmother, I don't even know what she did. I never really thought about it.
I would like to make a family tree. And I think it was one of our assignments in junior high. And I
Mhm.
started it and I was like, oh, I'm going to continue. I didn't. But I feel like it'd be nice to look into that and get a little more information from grandparents if they're still alive, which I haven't done that. And I think both of mine are alive and pretty well. So I feel like maybe I should try and do that. Because I mean then it's like stories that just disappear.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like both my grandparents, I had to interview them when I was in elementary or middle school, and
Mm. I
like
think
I still have those interviews. Like, what was school like when you were, what was
Mhm.
your first job? Like, what did your parents do for jobs? And
mm,
it's cool to look at those.
I feel like I know a lot about my dad's side, my grandpa from my dad's side. Not a lot about my grandma, which is interesting.
My grandma from my dad's side, um, or great grandma, yeah, great grandma had schizophrenia and like
Mm.
some other mental issues. And so there came a time where she couldn't take care of my grandpa and his siblings, so they had to go into foster care. Um, and then something similar happened to his my grandma's family had a similar situation. I don't think it was mental health related. I think it was just because it was during the Great Depression. But we don't know a lot because of that, because my grandparents don't like to talk about it. So,
Mhm.
um, so that's, I know a lot more on my mom's side than my dad's side.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see how maybe they just don't talk about it to try and not necessarily ignore it, but maybe not bring it back up and,
Mhm.
open up certain things that may hurt people, I guess. Because I
Yeah.
feel like that's how one of my, like, once again, my dad's side of the family, I think an aunt, so like a cousin of my grandma, had, I think it's dementia or some sort of that. And she would start saying some crazy things, and then they're just like, oh no, just ignore, just do this. And like, they try not to tell you about it because then they're like, oh no, it's just they're crazy, or they seem crazy, even though obviously it's not. It's like other stuff they're dealing with. And I feel like it is important for like things that could later affect you.
Mhm.
Um, but I know that a lot of people don't see it that way. They're just
Mhm.
like, yeah, let's just
Well, yeah,
ignore that part.
like I know mental health is can be hereditary, and it's definitely something that's in both sides of my family. Um, and you could see it generation through generation.
Mm,
Um, there's also addiction on both sides.
mhm.
So it is good to know. Besides the other health problems, like my mom's side is prone to health or heart problems, and
Yeah.
my dad's side is prone to back problems.
Mm.
So just knowing those things.
Yeah. I recently found out about because I know that, or I've learned that postpartum depression, if like your mom had it, you're like at a higher risk. And I
Mhm.
never knew, or I never really asked my mom, hey, did you like go through stuff like this? And I think I want to say like a month ago, I don't know why the conversation started. We were just talking about mental health. And she's like, yeah, my pregnancies weren't all happy. Like I went through so much with all, because we're three of them. We're three. So it's like I went through all three of them. They weren't all, rainbows and butterflies. And I was like, oh man, like I'm at a higher risk. I'm over here like
Yeah.
panicking. But I mean, like, you just gotta find resources that will help you, like, but it's better
Mhm.
to know. And I mean,
And
I
as you can
see it,
be.
right? But
Mhm.
like, let's say my sisters that aren't in a clinic and they don't see this, they're gonna be like, oh my God, I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, it's good
Mhm.
to know just in case that happens.
It's very valuable information. So you can be prepared or know that what's happening is happening because of this or that.
Hmm. How far did you get to it, Crystal?
I'm like 3/4 of the way. I just didn't read this week.
Mm.
I thought I was gonna read during like I tried to pick it up on Thursday, but like I don't know, se me pasó bien, like the weekend went by like super quick.
Yeah, I totally get you.
Well, that's why I'm not reading it. But you'll see it on Goodreads.
And it's kind of like you have to focus because
Yeah,
there's so much complexity. Like, I don't know, I feel like I missed some stuff by doing the audiobook.
yeah. I think I
Even with the
mentioned,
Kindle, it's like I have to keep going back, like
yeah,
looking at the family tree.
I want to say it was last meeting. I said that I went, like my younger sister was studying for like a test for her work. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to a coffee bean and I'll read. And that was one of the times I kept rereading the same chapter and I fell asleep, or like I was falling asleep while I was at coffee bean. And I'm like, like what's going on? But that's when I also realized like, oh, I really need to be focused and not let like the music or not let like, other things distract me. And there's certain books where I feel like the music won't bother you, or
Mhm.
like your surrounding is okay. It could be super loud and you're still very focused, or you're still able to fully understand. And with this one, I don't think that's one of them. I felt like it was like a literature, even though it
Mhm.
wasn't. I felt like I was like, oh, I have to study, not study, but really be connected to what I'm reading and be like, okay, do you get it? Because
Mhm.
if you move on and you don't get it, you're like, what happened? You're
Mhm.
lost. Yeah, but it's good. What would you rate it based off of what you've read so far?
Mm. I mean, it's for the most part, I think it's overall it's pretty good. I've learned I need to be a little more stricter with my rating because I can't just be given 5 stars all around. But I think I would rate it probably like a 3.5. Still thought it was pretty good. I probably would recommend it.
I mean, you could give fives to everything if you want.
Okay. But hey, I find that it's really easy for me to give it a 5 because I'm really easily entertained.
Okay.
So I was like, I have to, I have to, I have to look at it overall. Like if I'm like not just the story, it has to be like the writing,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Please excuse me, shoving my face in my popcorn.
It's okay.
Walmart has the Christmas popcorn tins
Mm,
where
those
it's
are the
like,
best.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
$6, and you would think it's gonna be shitty popcorn, but you get caramel, butter, and cheddar, and it's pretty good.
I love the
Right,
caramel one. Oh,
Mhm.
right now I'm eating white cheddar.
Mm. I think I could eat popcorn every day.
Uh-huh.
it's a healthy snack.
And
Mhm.
you just keep shoving it because it's just like you don't get tired of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Crystal, you weren't here. But oh, were you here?
Yeah, when you said we're skipping December,
Okay, yes, cool.
and I said I'm gonna miss you guys.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Are you gonna send in a book? I
I
think
did send you a book.
okay, cool.
No, but you know what? Now that I have a little bit more time, wait, when did you say that you're posting it?
Just send it this week. I mean,
Okay, because you had suggested me find a really good spicy book that I'd want to read, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Crystal
look for one.
Crystal wanted me to do a theme of smut for December, but I don't know if everyone would have liked that. And since we were very like off at the meetings, and then I was like, you know what? If you want to get a book that's part of the smut group, go for it. But I don't know if we.
But I need to find one that's like really dirty because I feel like sometimes they categorize them as smut, and it's like, oh, it's like one scene. I
I
don't want to be
appreciate
disappointed.
it. We could also do it for February.
That's true.
That
I
is
might just hold
very
off.
true.
Yeah. I felt like we had a couple books in a row with a little bit of that.
Was it
It's like
Talia's book, right?
The what was that? The fisherman one, and then it
It
ends with
happened one summer.
us.
see, that was a good era,
Yeah.
but I wanted a little
Yeah,
more.
It happened one summer
yeah,
and it ends with us was back to back.
yeah.
I think is it Hibbert? Is that her last name? Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Talia
Mm-hmm.
Hibbert. She is known for those type of books.
See, but there was sprinkled in there, and they weren't as like graphic.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that would
Well,
be fun.
yeah, we can suggest it for February. I'll just
Like I want
put
us
it
to
out there.
giggle when we talk about it. Like, you know?
I still remember that Rico left our meeting. And I was talking to my sister's fiance, and she was like, "Oh yeah," or he was like, "Yeah, I remember I was talking to Rico that he was in book club, and then that he said he left because it got a little."
Too
Awkward.
intense.
Oh, sorry.
Crystal, have you guys read Fourth Ring and Iron Flame?
I've heard of that.
It's good. Like if you need something over Christmas.
Is it part of A Court of Thorn and Roses?
It's not, but it's like if you read A Court of Thorns and Roses and you liked it, a lot of people like this one more because it's a little faster.
Oh,
And it's like Hunger Games meets
Ooh.
Harry Potter meets A Court of
Ooh.
Thorns and Roses. It's a pretty easy read. And
What is it? So I can add it to my Goodreads.
Fourth Wing.
Fourth Wing. And then the second book just came out, so if you can go straight into it.
I felt so much FOMO. Like everyone was like, Iron Flames came out. I have the day off, or they had like little parties, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, the book is here!" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what book is this? Like, why am I not reading it?" I
No, it's
felt
good.
so left out.
I recommend
Okay.
it if you need like a fun
Oh, I
read.
can list for sure.
Definitely do after this one. I felt like parts were like a little graphic, but it wasn't like what I wanted to
Right.
be reading.
Okay, well, I'll see you all in a month. Have a great Christmas and a happy new year. And I can't wait to see what book we get.
Mhm.
I wonder how much will change in a month. Like if there's somebody like
Got
new
my
hair, new
That's what I was thinking. I was
piercing.
thinking, and I was gonna be like, I want to see what color hair you guys dye it or cut it, but I don't know. We'll see. No eyebrows. Just kidding.
Oh, I just won't draw them on next time, just to scare you guys.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll see you guys. Have a wonderful break. Please read at least one book so we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
We all read Fourth Wing.
Yeah. You know
Mm.
what? I'll make that my mission. Yeah. And then, because you read it, right? You completely finished it.
I did it on Kindle and I read that one a few months ago and then I just started Iron Flame, the next one.
Okay. That will be our thing. That's our
Unofficial book.
unofficial book. Yeah.
Assignment. Yeah.
Okay. Have a good break. Bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.